All right, welcome to Chapter 12, Mobile Linux and Other Operating Systems. Get it together, Mark. All right, so this one we'll have a look at the other operating systems and have a brief overview. Now, I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on these ones because mobile devices, your generation, it's second nature to use mobile devices and touchscreens and that now, because your generation actually grew up with this, right? Unlike the old fogies of my generation, I mean, personal computers were just coming into mainstream when I was a teenager.
Hey, we might learn something.
What? Learn something? Nah,
Yeah,
don't be silly.
about phones.
uh, yeah, Jacob, they can be when they work well. They're really good. But a lot of, especially the early ones, were very touch and go with sensitivity of the touch, and they still are if you don't have, like, if you have been outside and your fingers and that are really cold. Even today's screens can't, because the temperature difference isn't high enough for it to detect it. That's something I've discovered, is when my fingers are frozen, touchscreens don't tend to work for me. All right, open source versus closed source. Closed source, vendor specific. So, open source means it's a community build, such as Linux, whereas most proprietary software is closed. In other words, it's developed by a specific company and not by anybody in the community adding to the code. So applications now are dime a dozen, especially for mobile devices. You've all got app stores. Doesn't matter whether you're Apple iOS or Android or Windows. Everybody is flogging little apps to be installed onto those phones and other mobile devices. And you've all used them. So, the basic screens are, you got docking settings down the bottom, your main surface area, and system statuses up on the top right. I really don't have to go through this because you're all familiar with mobile devices. You've probably all got one in your hand playing with it rather than watching the tutorial anyway. So Tim's the only one that can't get away with it so blatantly. Okay, so again, as I said, not going to really, you know how to swipe through and change screens and all that sort of stuff. So labs, work your way through the ones that make sense for you. We know how to use the home buttons, Siri's voice control and other things like that are pretty much a common thing in today's environment. I mean, what vendor doesn't have some form of voice activation these days? So you've got you've got Google Home devices, you've got all, what's the latest version of the branding? Personally, I don't have any of those in my home.
You don't have a
Um,
Google Home Mini?
Yeah. Google picks up way too much conversations off my microphones out of our mobile devices as it is.
Yeah, too right.
All right. I don't care what they say. We all know there's too much evidence that you mention something and suddenly you're getting ads for it on your browser bars and that. I mean, sorry, but if you mention something in conversation and then it has come up on your news ads, yeah. Yeah,
Something
right,
seriously wrong with
exactly.
it.
I mean, it's. I mean, if you set your, I mean, if you download traffic apps, traffic monitoring apps, you'll see that there's way too much updates and general traffic going back to Google servers on every Google device every device running a Google application. So they're just collecting so much data from everybody. All right, so one of the things you should do, and it's across the board with any application and any operating system, is make sure that you have them updated with latest patches. Okay. Mobile devices tend to have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, so multiple wireless connections via, mobile or Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and all of those things. If you're traveling via planes, turn them off. Follow the instructions. I mean,
I do have to ask though, why do they actually ask that?
basically because you're sitting inside a tin can that is called an airplane,
Yeah, yeah.
and all their control systems are basically wires that run between you and that outer shell. And if you're generating lots of RF on the inside, it has the
Right.
potential to cause interference in the wires.
Yep.
Now, aircraft are shielded to buggery for that very fact, but basically they are trying to eliminate any source of interference during the critical stages of takeoff and landing.
Yep.
That's basically
I
all it
mean,
is. It's
you don't get any reception anyway, do you? So like, there's no point
you can
regardless.
a little bit.
Can you really? When you're
Yeah.
at 10,000 feet in the air, you can actually
You
get.
you won't get it while you're up in the air.
Oh yeah, but when you're on the ground.
But while you're taxiing and taking off and that, you certainly will. It's just a safety feature. They're trying to eliminate a potential source of interference.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, okay,
Yes,
that's fair.
if the planes are running and maintained correctly, they won't actually cause interference because the plane should be shielded in their control systems.
Yeah.
But everything is run electronically. I mean, just like your trains, your planes and that, your pilots and your drivers and that are just glorified computer operators these days. All right. So let's face it, if people were comfortable with automated aircraft and that, you wouldn't have pilots.
Yeah, because it is. It's all automated. They're just sitting there to make sure nothing goes wrong,
Yeah.
which it
I
never
mean,
does.
I've seen planes bring themselves into landing on autopilot. So
Hmm.
the technology is capable of landing these craft in emergencies in autopilot. So yeah, a lot of this stuff you will do automatically when you're using mobile devices. Screen orientation, that we all have rotated and done the tap to rotate the screen orientation to get it to flip from vertical to horizontal portrait landscape, whatever terminology you would like to use. And I've just lost my VPN to the college, doesn't matter. Calibration, you must tell the device where your edge of your screens are. If it's a touch screen, you need to definitely calibrate where the touch sensors are, what their limits are, and you need to set your brightness and contrast levels just like any other screen, computer or mobile. GPS. Most mobile devices don't actually have inbuilt GPSs these days. They actually use the mobile towers to
triangulate,
locate themselves. Okay. Okay, Rad. Oh, that's good to see. Yeah. Google Maps. There's lots of apps that actually use the mobile towers for positioning rather than GPS, because most GPS services require a subscription to access their satellites.
Yeah.
Okay. Mobile towers are fixed. They're not running around the countryside, so using signal strength off a couple of towers, they can fairly accurately pinpoint your positioning, just like it with GPSs. Okay. And as you can see, I've gone through and deleted all the extra lab slides, and will probably go. And in this video, you will see this slide as well. Wi-Fi calling, I have this on all the time. It enhanced calling on my Android, it's called. This enables you to boost your call capabilities when you've got Wi-Fi available to your mobile device.
It's essentially VoIP calling, isn't it?
Yeah. And okay, to give you an example, right here, right now, I have 1 bar of mobile strength, yet I've got plenty of Wi-Fi available in my home, so receiving calls via Wi-Fi much more stable than on the mobile, because depending on where I'm sitting, whether I'm facing my computer or facing my window to my right, it changes from 1 bar of service to 2, and depending on whether I'm holding the phone or having it static on the desk, changes it as well. Quite often, if I actually pick up the handset to my ear, the call will drop. Yet if I leave it on the desk and put it on speaker, it's fine. That's mobile reception.
Yeah.
So by having Wi-Fi calling on, it gives us a more secure VoIP service. And people go, yeah, but it's VoIP service, not mobile. Oh, guess what? Hate to tell you, your mobile service provider runs IP. Okay? Most services, as soon as it goes into the backbone traffic area, they're converting it to IP traffic, because data services are their bread and butter now. Okay? Most of their networks are set up to prioritize voice traffic, yes, but it's still just an IP packet that they deliver. Okay, so they've cut over most of their systems to run data. So voice is just another data service they provide. Mobile payments via NFC. So you basically, depending on which one they're using, they can use near field communication. So they get you to stick a little circuit on the back of your phone, or some of them actually uses the circuitry built in, like the Samsungs. I know here in Melbourne, the Samsung were one of the original devices used to trial the Metro ticketing system on the mobile phones. So instead of having your Metro card, you actually just swiped your phone, and your phone was, set up to an application on the phone. You just ran that application, swiped your phone over the sensor pad, and it will deduct your fees out of your account, because your account's got your mobile ID, because each of these have a unique identifier, just like a MAC address, but slightly different. We call them IMEIs on these, which, if my sticker actually worked. So it's IMEI. It's basically a big serial number on the back of each phone. It's unique to the phone, so they can attach any account information to that. VPNs, I'm pretty sure we've all heard lots about these. VPNs can be set up between mobile devices, and just like any other device, you run the app, make the connection, and everything's encrypted and sent across the virtual network. So Siri and other voice activated assistants are available, and we've already discussed that earlier, so I'm not going to go through it again. Okay, screen locks. I'm hoping you all have some form of security set up on your mobile device, either with the pattern recognition, a PIN code, or something like that, so that your device is secure from random people just picking up and being able to use it. But it also helps protect your personal information on your phone books and all that. And you can set it up to, as here, too many attempts and it'll wipe the phone, whether you want it to do that or not, or just lock them out for a set amount of time. It's up to you how you set that one up. Backing up your device to the cloud. I mean, we've all probably got some form of cloud service available to us now. Mobile devices are no different to our desktops in that we can use OneDrive, Google Sync, iCloud, whatever is available. This is very important especially for our Apple users, to have the device tracking application, because let's face it, it's a very expensive toy, very easy to lose with somebody that has that likes having the 5-finger discount model of payment system. So it's very easy to put something down and forget it, and it's no longer there. If you have these tracking apps installed, at least you've got a chance of recovering your device. I do not recommend you do it yourself, as in track it down. I am legally obliged to say contact legal, the police, get them to pick it up. We've all seen the multitudes of people tracking their devices and capturing footage of people taking selfies and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. You can remote wipe the phones, you can do tracking of location, you can lock the device remotely. All of this is useful for securing your device. Should you have antivirus on these devices? Yes. Why? Because they're the new thing to attack. The vast majority of people do not have protection on their mobiles, so therefore people are out there writing code to attack these devices. Why? Because it's easy for them to gather information from. Rooting or jailbreaking your operating system basically allows you to get unrestricted access to the mobile operating system and do whatever you like to it. Now, the only problem with this is when you do this sort of stuff, you basically disconnect it from updates. Okay? So security updates and flaws and all that sort of stuff, you basically disconnect your device from all of that. Some will argue that's a good thing, especially with Apple being caught disabling their devices via software updates, making them run slower and all that sort of stuff, forcing you to upgrade. Okay? So up to you. But I will say that it is generally recommended, just like with any other operating system, to make sure it's got the latest version and is there. Now, just with any operating system, we have the various different kernels. I'm hoping you can all remember what a kernel is. Okay, it's the interface between the operating system and the hardware, and each operating system has a different base kernel that uses that. So Unix, Linux, Mac operating system all run basic kernels that are derived out of Unix. No, it's not. Unix was the original. Linux is a derivative, and so is the Mac operating system. That is why Mac operating systems are basically free, because they can't charge you for it because it's a Linux kernel, and you're not allowed to charge for a Linux kernel effectively.
That's
as
great.
It's open source. Okay, they would be in breach of the licensing agreement for that base kernel. We've all had a look at the different operating systems out there by now. I'm hoping the various versions of Linux that are available to people is, take whatever flavor preference you like. They're all basically the same except for the GUI interface. But behind the interface, they basically have the same command structures. So even your Mac operating system, you get down underneath the GUI and it's a Linux shell. Yes, it's a BSD version, but it's still Linux. So Linux commands in command lines, and I can tell you as a technician, an Apple service technician, that's where you work. You work in the Linux, you bypass the shell straight away and go into the Linux command lines. Alright. I've actually done the server training courses and that many moons ago, and that's the first thing we do. We bypass the GUI and get into the command line, because that's where you actually see what's actually going on, and it's not interpreted via a cut down GUI, because not all commands available via the GUI. Doesn't matter what application it is or operating system. Alright, so get in the command line. There it is. And, should you learn Linux? Yes. Okay. Straight out, yes. There are so many services that are now running Linux servers. There's even routers and switches that are using Linux code directly. Alright. Cisco was originally based on a derivative of Unix when they first came out, and have developed their own sort of operating system over the years. But other vendors are more true to the Linux core of their operating systems, and you can pretty much do straight translations. Just like in any other operating system, you have backup and recovery options inbuilt into the operating system. You have the ability to set it on a time clock, so it does it automatically. Okay, I will give it this. I like using Unix boot disks purely for using the diagnostic tools and the disk utilities. What you can do under Linux for compared to Microsoft products, Ubuntu and that outstrip Microsoft hands down. Partitioning, unmounting, formatting, they are far superior to it. Yes, Cooper, this is being recorded. Okay, so I'll post the link up for you later. So, scheduling tasks can be done just like you can schedule tasks in Microsoft operating systems. You can do it with Linux and Mac as well. You can schedule, turn on firmware updates, antivirus updates, all of this just like any other operating system needs to be done. Username, passwords, setting how long they're valid for, just as you would with any other operating system. You need to set them up. So you set up user accounts, you set the credentials attached to the user accounts just like you would with the other operating systems available. Need to do that. So the ls list command, okay, will give you a list and it will tell you who has access to it. So link number of directories inside, what user is the owner of the file or directory, what groups can have access to it. Over here on the left starts off with the permissions. So that group have these permissions attached to it. The date and time that it was last modified, and the actual file or folder names listed last. So just with any other system, we always have access rights, and these rights: write, execute, read, write, or full. Okay, and they can be set via the binary value. So you need to get the basics of the Linux commands down. Now, there are heaps of resources available for Linux and guides. We'll go through those on a separate item. But just be aware where these commands are just core commands. I'm not going to read them all out to you one by one. We'll be here forever. 6 steps of troubleshooting. I'm hoping you understand these 6 steps by now without me going through. Just about every chapter we read have the same 6 steps. Do I need to read them again? And Tim's going, no, please no.
No, I feel like it's troubleshooting is
Troubleshooting is something you learn by doing.
Yeah.
Very much. Just be aware that the 6 core steps, you need to know this process, right? If you know the process, you can troubleshoot anything. That's basically what this repetition is trying to say. Then it goes through some, typical questions. We've all discussed open and closed-ended questions. And, and then they'll have its usual set of, this problem, what could cause it, what are the possible solutions. Again, not going to go through them because you just click on each one and read it in the content. Most of you do troubleshooting natively. Like, can't get Wi-Fi, I can't get the web, why, you know what the common things that occur with your device are and how to fix it. I don't need to go through and do it. Now, most of that is repetition to what we've covered already. Mobile, Linux, and Mac, as far as use and what you set up, how you set it up, is exactly the same. It doesn't matter what operating system it is. You should always set up user accounts, set the privileges, Sorry, if it's a Mac operating system, you can't because it's a single user device. Sorry about that. But you've got security controls, you've got the ability to patch the system, add antivirus protection, and connect it to the various communication paths that we all have available, and we've talked about wireless, Bluetooth, mobile. We've talked about all this before in the other subjects, so I don't need to cover it again here. Not in depth, okay? Because this should be just a refresher with a little bit of a bend towards the individual operating system that they're talking about. So as you saw, the command line for Linux is quite different to the command lines we've been doing for the Windows operating system. But the core functionality and the purpose of the commands are the same. Changing directories, turning things on, running applications, setting up disk parameters and all that. They are all the same, just a different command structure depending on the operating system. Okay, so once you learn how to do something on one operating system, it's just a matter of finding the equivalent command structure in the other operating system. Okay, trust me, they haven't reinvented the wheel totally between operating systems. Or what they've done is put their own corporate command structure in on top of it. Okay? That's the only difference. And we'll call it quits there for chapter 12.